Throwaway because some people in my real life use Reddit and I'm not ready for this to blow back on me.
I, 34M, have been married to my wife, 32F, for a little over 6 years.
We met fast, fell hard, and honestly, for a long time I thought I got lucky.
She's sharp, confident, the kind of person who walks into a room and owns it. That was part of what attracted me to her in the first place. But over time, that sharpness started cutting in different ways. If I'm being real, there were red flags early on.
Small lies. Nothing huge, just unnecessary.
Like she'd say she was stuck in traffic, but then later casually mention grabbing coffee somewhere that was completely out of the way. Or she'd tell me she hadn't talked to someone in months, then I'd see their name pop up on her phone. When I brought it up, she'd snap back instantly, defensive, irritated, like I was the problem for even noticing. I convinced myself it was just her personality.
She's blunt. She doesn't like being questioned. Fine.
I told myself every relationship has quirks, right? But over the last year, things shifted.
She became colder.
Not all the time, sometimes she'd swing back to being affectionate, almost too much, like flipping a switch, but there was this growing distance I couldn't ignore.
Conversations got shorter. Eye contact disappeared. And the arguments, they escalated fast, like she was always ready for a fight. I remember one night specifically. I asked her a simple question about her day, and she snapped, "Why do you always interrogate me?" I wasn't interrogating her. I was trying to connect. But somehow, I ended up apologizing. Looking back now, that moment sticks with me more than it should. Because I think that's when I started feeling like something was off, not just in the relationship, but in the reality she was presenting to me. At the time, I didn't think she's cheating. I thought, I'm losing her. Things didn't blow up all at once. It was more like a slow, steady drift into something I couldn't quite name, but I could definitely feel it.
Her schedule started changing. At first it sounded reasonable, new projects at work, late meetings, team dinners. She works in a pretty demanding field, so I didn't question it too much. But then the details stopped lining up.
She'd say she'd be home by 8, then it'd be 10:30 with no message.
When I texted, I get short replies like busy or nothing at all for hours. But when she did come home, she'd act like everything was completely normal. No explanation, no apology, just this irritated energy, like I was the one being difficult for even noticing the time. One night, she walked in smelling different. Not like her usual perfume, something sharper, unfamiliar. I made a comment, half joking, like, "new scent," and she immediately got defensive.
It's probably from someone at work. We were in a small room all day. Can you not make everything weird? That was her go-to move. Flip it.
Make me feel like I was overthinking, overreacting, overstepping. And I hate conflict, so most of the time, I backed off.
But little things kept piling up.
She started guarding her phone like it was classified information.
Screen always face down.
Taking it with her everywhere, even the bathroom, which she never used to do. If a notification popped up, she'd swipe it away so fast it was almost automatic. I told myself not to be that guy.
I didn't want to be paranoid or controlling.
I trusted her, or at least I was trying to.
But then there was this one moment I can't shake.
We were on the couch, both on our phones. Hers buzzed, and for a split second, I saw a name pop up.
Not one I recognized. Just a first name and a heart emoji next to it.
Before I could even process it, she tilted the screen away and stood up. "I'm going to take a shower," she said, too quickly. I just sat there, staring at the blank TV screen, feeling this heavy, sinking weight in my chest. Still, I didn't confront her.
Not yet. I think part of me already knew I wouldn't like the answers. After that night, I started noticing everything. It was like once the doubt got in, I couldn't turn it off. Every little inconsistency stood out. Every delayed text, every unexplained mood swing, every time she smiled at her phone and then looked annoyed when I entered the room, it all started connecting into something I didn't want to believe. And the worst part?
She acted like I was the one changing. She asked me one night,
why are you being so weird lately? I almost laughed. Why am I being weird? Because my wife suddenly treats her phone like a state secret? Because she disappears for hours and comes home irritated? Because I feel like I'm living with someone who's half here and half somewhere else? But instead of saying all that, I just shrugged and said I was tired. Because I was scared. Scared that if I said the words out loud, "Are you cheating on me?" then everything would become real. Still, the anxiety was eating me alive. I wasn't sleeping right. I was replaying conversations in my head, trying to make sense of things that didn't add up. One minute I'd convince myself I was imagining it all, and the next I'd be certain something was happening behind my back. Then came the weekend that really pushed me over the edge. She told me she had to attend a last-minute work strategy retreat on Saturday. She said her whole department was going, and they'd be in meetings most of the day. The story sounded rushed, like she'd put it together on the fly, but she said it with so much confidence that I nodded and let it go. Saturday morning, she left early, dressed nicer than I'd expect for a work meeting. Not formal exactly, but intentional. Hair done, makeup perfect, wearing earrings she usually saved for actual dates. I noticed it. Of course I noticed it. And I hated that I noticed it. Around noon, I sent her a casual text, "Hope the retreat isn't too painful." No response. At 3 p.m., nothing. At 6 p.m., still nothing. By then, my stomach was in knots. Then something happened that changed everything. Her friend Melissa called me. At first I thought something was wrong, but Melissa just sounded confused. She said, "Hey, is your wife with you? She was supposed to come to dinner with us tonight, but she's not answering." I felt my whole body go cold. I said, "I thought she was at a work retreat." There was this silence. Then Melissa said, very quietly, "She told us she was spending the weekend with you." That was the moment the floor dropped out from under me. Because suddenly it wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was proof that she was lying. And I had absolutely no idea where my wife really was. I wish I could say I handled that moment calmly and rationally. I didn't. As soon as I hung up with Melissa, my brain went into overdrive. My hands were literally shaking. I tried calling my wife straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. I texted, "Where are you?" No response. That was it. Something in me snapped. I remembered she still had her old tablet at home, the one she barely used anymore. It was sitting in a drawer in our bedroom. I don't even fully remember deciding to go get it. My body just moved. When I turned it on, I realized it was still synced to her accounts. Messages. Email. Photos. Everything. I hesitated for maybe 5 seconds. Not because I thought it was wrong, but because I knew, deep down, that once I looked, there was no going back. Then I opened her messages. At first, it was just normal stuff. Group chats. Work threads. Nothing out of the ordinary. For a second, I actually felt this weird wave of relief, like maybe I was losing my mind. Then I found a conversation that wasn't saved under a real name. Just a single letter. D. My stomach dropped. I opened it. And there it was, pages and pages of messages. Not even subtle. Flirting, inside jokes, plans. It wasn't new either. The thread went back months. Then I saw the most recent messages. From that morning. D. Can't wait to have you all to myself this weekend. Her, finally. I told everyone I'm busy, so no interruptions, smirking face. I felt like I couldn't breathe. But it got worse. There were photos. Not explicit, but intimate enough that there was zero room for doubt. Selfies of her in outfits I'd never seen. Mirror pics sent just for him. One where she's wearing that same outfit she left the house in that morning. Smiling. Not the polite smile she gave me lately. A real one. I kept scrolling, even though every part of me was screaming to stop. They talked about meeting at a hotel. About how last time wasn't long enough. About how she missed him. Last time. That phrase hit me harder than anything else. Because it meant this wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a one-time thing. It was a pattern. An ongoing, deliberate choice. I don't know how long I sat there staring at that screen. It felt like time just broke. Eventually, I put the tablet down and just sat on the edge of the bed, completely numb. No anger yet. No yelling. No dramatic reaction. Just this heavy, crushing realization. My wife wasn't just lying to me. She had built an entirely separate life behind my back. And I had been standing right next to her the whole time, completely unaware. I didn't confront her right away. I know that probably sounds strange, but after what I saw, I wasn't in a state to have any kind of conversation. I wasn't even thinking clearly. It was like my brain had split into two parts, one completely numb, the other racing through every possible scenario at once. I kept going back to that message, last time wasn't long enough. That line wouldn't leave my head. So I picked the tablet back up. I told myself I was looking for context, but honestly, I think I was trying to hurt myself with the truth. Like if I saw enough of it, it would finally feel real. I scrolled further up the conversation. That's when I started to piece together how long this had been going on. At least 8 months. 8 months of lies. Of fake late meetings. Of her coming home and kissing me like everything was normal. Of me asking how her day was while she was actively building something with another man. There were specific dates that made my stomach turn. Our anniversary. She had sent him a message that night after we went out to dinner. Her pretending was exhausting today. I had planned that dinner for weeks. She smiled the whole time. Held my hand across the table. Even posted a picture of us with some caption about love and grateful. And then she went home and texted another man that being with me was something she had to pretend through. I actually laughed when I read that. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd it broke something in me. Then I found messages about me. That was a different kind of pain. She called me predictable. Said I was safe but boring. Joked that I'd never suspect anything. There was one message that hit harder than all the others. He trusts me completely. It's almost too easy. I had to put the tablet down again after that. That wasn't just cheating. That was contempt. I always thought even if a relationship was struggling, there was still some baseline level of respect. But reading those messages, I realized she didn't just step outside the marriage. She was actively looking down on me while doing it. And that's when the numbness started to crack. Because underneath it, something else was building. Anger. Not explosive, screaming anger. Something colder. More focused. Because for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't confused anymore. I knew exactly what was happening. And more importantly, I knew she was going to walk through that door later and pretend, again, that everything was normal. I spent the next few hours in a weird, hyper-focused state. No panic. No pacing. Just clarity. For months, I'd been doubting myself, questioning my instincts, second-guessing what I was seeing, letting her convince me I was overreacting. But now, there was no room for interpretation anymore. No gray area. She was cheating. Repeatedly. Intentionally. And she thought I was too blind to notice. So instead of confronting her immediately, I did something I never thought I'd do. I started preparing. I took screenshots of everything. The messages, the photos, the dates. I emailed them to myself, backed them up, made sure there was no way it could just disappear if she decided to delete anything later. Then I checked our shared accounts. That part made my stomach twist in a different way. Hotel charges. Not frequent enough to look obvious at a glance, but once I knew what I was looking for, they stood out. Random weekday afternoons. A couple of weekends where she claimed she was with friends. I matched one of the dates with the message thread. It lined up perfectly. That's when it really sank in how calculated this all was. This wasn't reckless. This wasn't sloppy. She had a system. Separate stories for different people. Enough truth mixed in with lies to make everything believable. Careful timing. Controlled communication. And somehow, she kept it all running without slipping. Or at least, without slipping until now. Around 9 p.m., she finally texted me. Long day. Probably staying late. Don't wait up. I stared at that message for a long time. There it was. Another lie. Delivered casually, like it cost her nothing. I typed out a response, something neutral, okay. Hope it goes well. Even sending that felt surreal. Because at that exact moment, I knew where she actually was. Not at work. Not in a meeting. In a hotel room with someone else. And she had no idea that I knew. That imbalance did something to me. For the first time in months, I wasn't reacting. I was ahead of her. I started thinking about how this confrontation was going to go. Because I knew her. I knew exactly how she'd respond. First, denial. Then deflection. Then anger. Then somehow, she'd try to flip it on me, make me the villain for invading her privacy or not trusting her. But now I had proof. Not suspicions. Not feelings. Facts. Still, there was one thing I hadn't figured out yet. How I wanted this to end. Because confronting her wasn't just about exposing the truth. It was about deciding what I was going to do with it. And at that point, I still didn't have an answer. She came home a little after midnight. I heard the door unlock, slow and careful, like she didn't want to make noise. That alone told me a lot. If she really thought I was asleep, why be so cautious? I stayed on the couch, lights off, TV off. Just sitting there in the dark. Waiting. When she stepped into the living room and saw me, she actually flinched. Just for a second. Then it was gone, replaced with that familiar annoyed expression, like I was an inconvenience. Why are you sitting in the dark? She asked, dropping her bag like nothing was wrong. I studied her face. Her hair was slightly messy, makeup a bit faded, but not in a long day at work way. More like, worn off. She smelled like that same unfamiliar perfume again. I kept my voice calm. How was work? She didn't even hesitate. Busy. Meetings all day. I told you. There it was. Another lie. Smooth. Immediate. Effortless. And for some reason, hearing it out loud, knowing exactly how false it was, hit harder than reading the messages. Because she was looking me in the eye while saying it. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I said. Must have been exhausting. She sighed, already irritated. It was. I'm going to shower. Of course she was. I watched her walk past me, completely composed, like she hadn't just spent the day with another man. Like we were just a normal couple having a normal evening. And that's when I realized something that genuinely unsettled me. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't guilty. If anything, she was annoyed at the idea of having to interact with me at all. I stood up. Hey, I said. She stopped, turned halfway, clearly impatient. What? My heart was pounding, but my voice stayed steady. Melissa called me. That landed. I saw it. Just for a fraction of a second, her eyes flickered. A tiny crack in the mask. But she recovered fast. So, she said, crossing her arms. What does that have to do with anything? I held her gaze. She said you told her you were spending the weekend with me. Silence. Real silence this time. Not annoyed. Not dismissive. Tense. And for the first time since she walked in. She didn't have an immediate answer. That's when I knew this was about to shift from lies to something a lot more explosive. That silence stretched just a little too long. And with her, that was everything. Normally she always had something ready, an excuse, a deflection, a way to twist things around before I could even finish a sentence. But this time? She hesitated. Just for a second. Then she rolled her eyes. "Oh my God," she muttered. "Are we seriously doing this right now?" There it was. Not panic. Not guilt. Annoyance. Like I was the problem for connecting obvious dots. I didn't raise my voice. "Doing what?" I asked. "This," she said, gesturing vaguely at me. "Interrogating me over something stupid." Melissa probably just got confused. Confused about what? I said. "You told her one thing, you told me another. So which one is true?" She let out this exaggerated sigh, like I was exhausting her. "I don't remember exactly what I told her, okay? I've had a long day. Can we not do this right now?" It was almost impressive. She was trying to shut the conversation down before it could even start. But I wasn't backing off anymore. "No," I said, calm but firm. "We're doing this now." Her expression hardened immediately. "Wow," she said. "So now you're going to control when I'm allowed to have conversations?" And there it was, phase 2. Deflection. Make it about control. About me being unreasonable. If this had been a few months ago, I probably would have backed down. Apologized. Told her we could talk later. But not this time. "Just answer the question," I said. "Where were you today?" She stared at me, jaw tight. "At work," she repeated. Flat. Final. Like saying it enough times would make it true. I held her gaze for a second longer. Then I nodded slowly. "Okay." I turned, walked back to the couch, and picked up my phone. Her eyes followed me, suspicious now. "What are you doing?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I just unlocked the screen, pulled up the screenshots, and scrolled for a second. Then I looked back at her. "Are you sure you want to stick with that answer?" Something shifted again. This time, it wasn't just irritation. It was tension. Real tension. She didn't say anything, but I could see it, her brain working fast, trying to figure out what I knew, how much I knew, what angle she could still take. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't in control of the narrative anymore. She didn't answer right away. And that told me everything. Because silence, from her, wasn't normal. She always had something, some version of reality she could throw at me fast enough to make me doubt myself. But now? She was calculating. "How much do you think you know?" she asked finally, narrowing her eyes. Not "what are you talking about?" Not "you're wrong." Just that. I let out a quiet breath. "Enough," I said. I walked over and held my phone out toward her. "Do you want to read it, or should I?" She didn't take the phone. She just glanced at the screen, and I saw it hit her. Not dramatically. Not like in movies where someone breaks down. It was more subtle. Her posture stiffened. Her jaw clenched. But still, no apology. Instead, she scoffed. "Wow," she said. "So you went through my stuff?" I almost laughed. There it was. Phase 3. Turn it on me. "You're seriously going to make this about that?" I asked. "You violated my privacy," she shot back immediately, louder now, more confident. "That's not okay. I don't care what you think you saw." "I don't think anything," I cut in, my voice sharper than before. "I know." That stopped her. Just for a second. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Hotel. Messages. Last time wasn't long enough. Do you want me to keep going? Her eyes flickered again. There it was, that crack. Small, but real. But instead of breaking, she doubled down. You're taking things out of context, she said quickly. Those messages don't mean what you think they mean. I stared at her. Then explain them, I said. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Looked away for a split second, then back at me, like she was trying to reset the conversation. It's just flirting, she said finally. It's not a big deal. People do that. I felt something in me snap at that. Flirting? I repeated. You're meeting him in hotels. Her tone sharpened instantly. You don't know that. I held up my phone again. The dates match the charges, I said. Don't insult me. Silence. Heavy. Thick. And then, finally, the truth slipped out. Not as a confession, but as something colder. She crossed her arms, lifted her chin slightly, and said, Fine. And what if I did? No tears. No guilt. Just defiance. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else so far. Because in that moment, it wasn't about denying it anymore. It was about the fact that she didn't think she needed to. For a second, I honestly thought I misheard her. What if I did? That's what she said. Not I'm sorry. Not it's not what it looks like. Not even another lie. Just that. I felt this strange, hollow feeling open up in my chest. So that's it? I said quietly. That's your response? She shrugged. Why are you acting like this is the end of the world, she said. It's not that dramatic. I actually stepped back a little, just staring at her. Not that dramatic? I repeated. You've been lying to me for months. You've been seeing someone else behind my back. And you're telling me it's not a big deal? She rolled her eyes again, like I was missing something obvious. It's not like I'm leaving you, she said. I'm still here, aren't I? That hit in a completely different way. Because suddenly it wasn't just betrayal. It was how she framed it. Like I should be grateful she hadn't fully replaced me. Do you hear yourself right now? I asked. You're overreacting, she shot back immediately. This doesn't have to be a whole thing unless you make it one. There it was again. Minimization. Control. Rewrite the situation so I look unreasonable for having a reaction at all. I shook my head slowly. A whole thing? I said. It is a whole thing. It's our marriage. She let out a sigh, clearly annoyed now that I wasn't falling in line. Look, she said, softer, but not kinder. Just more calculated. Things haven't been great between us for a while. You know that. I didn't respond. Because yeah, things hadn't been great. But I didn't cheat. I didn't build a second relationship. I didn't lie to her face every single day. She kept going. You've been distant. Predictable. We barely connect anymore. I needed something different. There it was. Justification. Not even trying to deny it anymore, just explaining why it was somehow understandable. I let out a slow breath. So you decided to lie instead of talking to me? I asked. I tried talking, she said quickly. You just don't listen. That almost made me laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so familiar. Every problem, somehow, traced back to me. Every choice she made, somehow, my fault. I looked at her for a long moment. Really looked. And for the first time, I think I saw her clearly. Not the version I fell in love with. Not the version I kept trying to fix things with. But who she actually was right now. And the scariest part? She genuinely didn't think she'd done anything unforgivable. To her, this was just something that happened. Something I should either accept or get over. That's when something in me shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just, cleanly. Like a line had finally been crossed so many times it stopped meaning anything. I looked at her and realized I wasn't arguing anymore to fix things. There was nothing to fix. So this is your position, I said slowly. You cheated, you lied, and now you're telling me I should just accept it because I wasn't enough. She didn't even flinch. If you want to put it like that, she said, shrugging. That was it. No remorse. No hesitation. Just ownership of the situation without responsibility for it. I nodded once. Okay. She narrowed her eyes. What does that mean? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked past her into the bedroom. I opened the drawer where I kept important documents, passports, bank papers, everything we both used to treat as shared. I pulled out a folder. Her expression changed slightly when she saw it. Not fear. Just caution. What are you doing? She asked again, slower this time. I set the folder on the table. I'm not going to keep having the same conversation with someone who doesn't think they did anything wrong, I said. She scoffed. So what, you're threatening me now? That word again. Threatening. Always framing consequences as aggression. I shook my head. No, I said. I'm deciding what happens next. That finally got her attention. She stepped closer. You're being ridiculous, she said, voice tightening. You're going to throw away 6 years over messages? I looked at her. And for the first time, I didn't feel confusion. Or sadness. Just clarity. It wasn't just messages, I said. It was months of lies. It was a second life you built while looking me in the face every day. She opened her mouth. But I cut her off. And the worst part isn't even that you did it, I added. It's that you don't even respect me enough to pretend to care that it mattered. That landed differently. I saw it in her expression, just a flicker. Not guilt. But irritation mixed with something else. Loss of control. She exhaled sharply. So what, you're done, she said. Just like that? I nodded. Yeah, I said. Just like that. A pause. Then she laughed once. Short. Sharp. Disbelieving. You're not serious, she said. But her voice wasn't as confident anymore. Because now she could feel it. This wasn't a fight anymore. It was a decision. And she was no longer the one making it. The room went quiet after that. Not the dramatic kind of silence people imagine, no crying, no shouting, no sudden breakdown. Just this heavy, suspended stillness where everything felt decided. She stared at me like she was waiting for me to undo what I just said. Like I'd eventually laugh, shake my head, and go back to normal. But I didn't move. Finally, she spoke again. You're really going to do this over pride, she said, softer now. Over hurt feelings. I let out a slow breath. That framing again. Like betrayal was just an emotional inconvenience I needed to manage better. It's not pride, I said. It's respect. She scoffed lightly, but it didn't carry the same confidence anymore. You act like I killed someone, she muttered. And that was the moment something in me went cold. Not angry. Just done. Because she still wasn't getting it. Still reducing everything to inconvenience instead of consequence. I nodded slowly. Pack a bag, I said. She blinked. What? You can stay somewhere else tonight, I repeated. I'm not doing this here. For the first time, her mask slipped a little more. You can't just kick me out of my own home, she said quickly. I looked at her. It's not your own home, I said quietly. It's ours. And you made it unlivable. That shut her up for a second. Not because she agreed. Because she realized I wasn't arguing anymore. She stood there, breathing a little faster now, scanning my face like she was trying to find the version of me she used to control. Then she tried a different angle. "We can fix this," she said, stepping closer. "We just need to talk when we're both calm. You're emotional right now." I laughed once. Not loud. Just enough to interrupt her. "Don't do that," I said. "Do what?" "Don't reduce this to me being emotional so you can avoid accountability." That landed harder than anything else I'd said so far. She stopped talking. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. And maybe she didn't. Because I wasn't reacting the way she expected. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't begging. I wasn't breaking. I was just finished. She finally grabbed her bag from the floor. Slowly. Angrily. Like even leaving was something she didn't want to accept responsibility for. At the door, she paused. "You're going to regret this," she said. I met her eyes. And I meant it when I said, "No. I already did that part. Staying would have been worse." She left without another word after that. The door closed, and for a few seconds I just stood there, listening to the silence settle in. It didn't feel like relief yet. It felt more like shock finally catching up with me. Everything in the apartment looked the same, but nothing felt normal. Her bag was gone. Her keys were gone. The space she always occupied, her presence, her noise, her habits, was just absent. And weirdly, that absence was louder than anything she ever said. I sat down on the couch again. Same spot from earlier. Same darkness. But now it wasn't anticipation anymore. It was aftermath. I kept replaying pieces of the conversation in my head, trying to make sense of how someone could sit across from you for years, share meals, sleep in the same bed, talk about future plans, and still be living a completely separate truth. It didn't fit together. Not emotionally. Not logically. At some point, I opened my phone again. There were already messages. Of course there were. First from her. "You made a huge mistake." Then another. "You're going to regret treating me like this." Then. "I hope you're happy destroying everything." I stared at them for a while. Not angry anymore. Just tired. Because even now, even after everything, she still couldn't say the words. Still couldn't admit what she did. Still framing it as something I did to her. I locked the phone. Put it face down. And just sat there for a long time. At some point later, Melissa texted me again. "I'm really sorry. I had no idea." I didn't reply right away. Because I realized something uncomfortable. For months, maybe even longer, I had been the only one trying to hold the shape of the relationship together. While she was building something else entirely, I was filling in the gaps with trust, excuses, and hope. And no one else saw it. Not even the people closest to us. That realization didn't hurt the same way the betrayal did. It was quieter. Heavier. More permanent. I eventually stood up and walked through the apartment, turning on lights one by one, like I was reclaiming the space from something invisible. Then I stopped in the bedroom. Our bedroom. Her side of the bed was untouched. Neatly made. Like she hadn't just ripped my entire reality apart in it. And for the first time that night, I actually felt something solid. Not anger. Not sadness. Just certainty. Because whatever came next, it was no longer going to involve pretending things were okay. The next morning didn't feel like a new day. It felt like the continuation of the same long night. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, my brain replayed pieces of the conversation, her tone, her indifference, the way she tried to shift blame like it was second nature. It wasn't even the cheating that kept looping. It was the lack of remorse. That part stuck deeper than anything else. Around 8 a.m., I got another message from her. I stayed at my sister's. I'm not going to argue over text. We need to talk properly. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just control of the narrative again. Like the night before was something inconvenient that needed discussion, not consequences. I didn't respond. Instead, I started making actual practical decisions. I contacted a lawyer. That word alone felt unreal at first. Like it belonged to someone else's life, not mine. But as I spoke, explaining the situation in plain terms, marriage, infidelity, separation, it became clearer how straightforward this actually was legally, even if emotionally it was anything but. When I hung up, I didn't feel better. But I felt grounded. Later that day, she showed up at the apartment. I didn't let her in immediately. She knocked, then texted. Open the door. We're adults. I opened it eventually, but I didn't step aside. She walked in anyway, like she still had permission. Her eyes scanned the room quickly. You've been talking to lawyers? She asked immediately. So that was her priority. Not I'm sorry. Not I messed up. Just that. I nodded. Yeah, I said. Her expression tightened. You're actually going through with this? I looked at her for a second. And I realized something strange. She still thought this was negotiable. Like we were in a disagreement over plans, not a rupture in trust. Yes, I said simply. She exhaled sharply, pacing a little. This is insane, she said. You're blowing up our entire life over something that can be fixed. I shook my head. It can't, I said. She stopped. Looked at me directly. And for the first time, there was something different in her voice. Not remorse. Not sadness. Annoyance mixed with panic. You don't even want to try? She asked. I almost laughed again. Try what? I said. You've been trying 4 months while lying to me every day. That made her pause. Just briefly. Then she switched again. If you leave me, she said carefully, you're going to realize what you lost. There it was again. The same pattern. Even now, it was about me losing her, not her losing us. I stepped back slightly. No, I said quietly. I already realized what I had. And that was the first time she didn't have a response.